Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to another edition of Full Blast. My hair's doing a weird thing today, and I'm not feeling it. But I don't know. I'm so excited to get some version of a haircut. It's not going to be like short like it was because the length is nice, but like, whew, we got a lot. We got a lot happening on the sides here. So, talking about consume, I have, look, again, I gotta be, full transparency. I have a complicated relationship with consume in that I am a lead blaster. My two savior functions are my OI and my DE. So that means that anything where I have to use both my OE and my DI, it's gonna be tough, right? But I say it's a complicated relationship because I have consume third, right? I'm a glass lizard. So what that means is that my animal that has two demon functions attached to it is double activated. Let me try this again. See, it's what happens when you try and talk and you don't know what you're talking about. When you have your animal that has two demon functions activated at all, right? If it's in your top three at all, it's going to create this weird effect because you're going to be aware of what you don't know, but you're still going to have blind spots about it. It's super weird. Okay, so let me sort of break down why I'm even going into all of this weird fucking preamble. I bring all of this up as preamble of like, I have a complicated relationship with consume. I'm a lead blaster. Shannon's double activated on consume. Dave is missing consume. I bring all of this up because I think it is important to understand, especially when we go to like preach about something, to just understand where we're coming from, right? And, I have certainly seen in my life the dangers that have come from not reevaluating my worldview and not updating it, right? And there's a lot of different ways that the nomenclature around consume gets talked about is, taking in new information, taking in information for self, new information checked against your introverted, like it can get very convoluted. But one thing that came up in one of the videos, and it came up in a couple of the discussions, consume is really, at the end of the day, if we're looking for the opposition to blast, consume is about updating your personal worldview. In contrast to blast, which has no desire to update the personal worldview and only just wants to tell people what to do, and more specifically, tell them the same shit over and over and over and over again, right? They talk about this a lot, referencing Tai Lopez, and even Dave to an extent, they talk about this, where like Tai Lopez will say, so I read this book, and I'm reading this book, and I read this book, but you can catch him as being super duper consume blast for a couple of reasons. First, he does not actually read the book. He'll like skim through it, get the chapters, get the main idea, and be like, yeah, I read the book, right? So that's him, I guess, peacocking, if you want to call it that. Again, I don't love that term. I think it's a little swooshy, but probably applicable to a lot of YouTubers. So fair enough. But really where you can catch him is why is he going in to read this book, right? And someone like Tai Lopez or Dave, who have consumed last, they're going into these books, they're going into read, whatever, not with the intention of like updating their own internal decider. They're going into it to confirm what they already know, right? They're doing fake consume just to reinforce their savior OI, right? That's very interesting to me because I've been thinking a lot about like my own personal struggles lately, what the quarantine has brought out in me, like the ways in which I've grown and sort of like shining a light on a number of different facets of my life. It's been very cool, very interesting. But one of the things that I've started to really be able to process out here is the fact that during this quarantine, even though, yes, I'm still doing a little bit of work, I'm still doing these videos, I do have a routine, whatever, like there isn't this constant barrage of new information that I have to take in. And again, thinking back to my time in New York, and it was coincidentally right around the time that I was starting to go through a really tough time in life, with the anxiety and the depression, was right around when I discovered OP. So like fortuitous there, cool. But I think that, sort of looking back on that time and the conversations I had with Dave and this and that, what was happening with me in a big way is that I was stuck in this kind of consume loop where I recognized, oh, you know what? I got to make a change. The world is changing. Trump just got elected. Institutions are crumbling. We have to be willing to take in new information. And it's certainly in my very liberal, very academia-minded bubble, they were all about doing, the consume. You got to learn. You got to constantly be updating your inner world because we are culturally so far behind. And in a lot of ways that makes sense, but it became so clear to me, especially in this past week, for whatever reason, just how terribly, terribly dangerous that can be. And I wanted to go into it a little bit, and I don't want to overly vilify consume, but I want to clarify that this particular time in human history is not great for those with high consume or even with low. Like it's a very fragile needle, right? Like the needle's real wobbly in terms of consuming too little, consuming too much, consuming too little, consuming too much. Like it isn't like a nice, steady, gentle back and forth. So I'm going to pull up a couple of conversations I was having with some friends. One of them is a very good IJ friend of mine, and the other is an IP friend of mine who has, I think he's a consume sleep blast IP. So he's like real all in on his DI, a lot of sleep, still lead consume, which is again why I bring it up. My IJ friend who's a lead blast, IP friend who's a lead consume. And we're all kind of seeing and feeling the same thing. So I'm like, okay, that is enough of a cross check for me to start, moving forward. And I was talking to my friends, and I was saying, most of my energy these past few years has been spent updating my worldview. And I do think that that's really good and important, and I'm glad I did it because, 2016 was tough. And in 2017, the world started to, undergo a really important cultural shift, and certainly America, bringing to the fore all of the systemic injustices against women and minorities and people with different disabilities. There's a whole host of ways in which the current system did not serve a big chunk of the population. And that's really, really important that we, when we are confronted with something like that, when we feel ourselves on the verge of a big shift, and we have that inkling that, oh, fuck, there's a big picture thing that I am just missing. And you gotta consume. that is the time. You got to just do it for a little bit and like start to update your mental map, right? But where the trap that I got into, and I think that it's part of internet culture, I think it's part of nerd culture, I think it's part of academic culture, social media in general, but again, not like the dipshit minion meme sharing Facebook game garbage. I mean, like, even when you get beyond that, like the best version of social networking or social media, right, that isn't purely social networking and using it as like a messaging app, is still intensely consume heavy. And I sort of felt myself, and now that we do have this respite, right? Like, there was a really intense couple of weeks at the end of March, like the last 2 to 3 weeks of March, the last 2 weeks of March, first week of April, fucking cuckoo bananas pants, right? Just a hot mess everywhere. But like, once we got past that initial massive change where everybody had to reevaluate their patterns and their systems and figure out a new way of living for the next 3 to 6 months that is sustainable, that is healthy, that isn't going to like, drive them into bankruptcy, like whatever, your struggles, whatever may be, like that's just a thing we all had to do. We had to update our worldview, the things that mattered to us, or how we, again, lots of different nomenclature here, but like the key here being updating it and not going to the gym 5 days a week, right? Because that is literally unavailable to us. I cannot get my Saturday brunch because the restaurant is closed, right? So I have no choice but to update my patterns and my habits and my system. And incidentally, I ended up saving like actual hundreds of dollars just from shit being closed all the time. And I was like, oh, God damn it. I have to keep doing this, don't I? And I'm also like eating healthier, and I have not gained a pound since the quarantine started. It's been 6 weeks. I have not gained a pound. And I'm like, God damn it. This is a thing I have to like continue on with, right? Those sorts of big picture things, super, super important. But there's such a trap of feeling like the amount that you are consuming and the amount of time and energy and effort you're putting into updating your worldview is never enough. And here's where that comes in. And I've been trying to fucking pinpoint it for years. And now I think I finally got it. And now that we are in this stage of like, there just isn't nearly as much new shit getting thrown at us. The thing that I realized is that when you make an effort to update your worldview, whether it is through a meme, whether it is through a think piece, whether it is through a TV show, like a documentary, that takes a significant chunk of time and energy, but like really it takes a chunk of time, right? Because just the process of doing it is not as simple as, oh, I watched the new Ava DuVernay documentary, I now get racism. Like, that's not how it works, right? If you're going to do it in any kind of meaningful way and really genuinely update your worldview and your personal beliefs, it's like, I'm going to watch a thing, read an article, take it in, think about it, and then just do all sorts of like DI, and there's like a sleep component to it maybe, and but like really the consume part of it is there's new stuff out there that I don't have downloaded yet, right? Whether it is new ways of looking at the world, whether it's like an NE kind of consume, whether it's new gadgets, new ways to get fit, whether it's new sensory information. Again, it can be a million fucking things, right? But because of the internet, because there is literally an infinite, not literally an infinite, but like there's functionally an infinite amount out there to consume, right? Because the rate at which one can consume is eclipsed by the rate at which new content in general is being generated, right? So you cannot consume all that there is to consume. Okay, fine. But also, the conversation shifts so quickly. I was talking to a buddy of mine. This is the IP buddy of mine. I like INFP, consume, sleep, blast, and then I know he's consume, sleep. I think he's blast play. He could be blast last. I don't know. But he's somewhere in that realm, right? And he was telling me about Final Fantasy VII. They just did the remake of it. It was like a huge fucking deal 2 weeks ago. Like, this was like a game, like an industry-defining thing that happened. And 2 weeks later, you can't even get someone to talk to you about it on the forums because there's just a new thing out, right? There's just a new game that everyone's talking about. And you're like, motherfucker, this game came out 2 weeks ago. How am I this behind the curve? And then also, so again, as he pointed out, this could be due to quarantine time, with everything being just weird and wonky and compressed. But I think the same premise still applies. Hey, anybody remember Tiger King? Yeah, that came out 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks. That's like a little over a month ago it came out. And nobody's fucking talking about it anymore. We've all moved on to other things. I haven't heard, barely anybody talking about Animal Crossing. That's been like my main squeeze lately. So with that as a given, then you have to make a choice. So then you're like, okay, do I go from new game to new game to new game to new game? Or do I actually complete something that I care about? Or do I, right? Because you're not going to do anything if you don't care about it, right? James Clear talks about this all the time. If your DI he doesn't use these words. Like if your DI isn't on board and you're trying to consume or sleep, it's just not going to fucking happen, right? And he and I were both talking about how we're in this weird time and mode and mood and whatever, where there just isn't a way to actually keep up. And so to go back to this analogy of like downloading new information, right? A big issue that I ran into, and again, part of this is because it is a demon. I acknowledge that. But like at this point, it's only my third animal. I've been doing it my whole life. I live in an SF world. I work in an SF industry. Like the world of SF is not wholly foreign to me. My mother, God bless her, she is a lead ESFJ blaster. I grew up in a household dominated by SF, right? But it just takes time to actually consume, process information, right? And especially if you're trying to do the consume sleep thing together, now you're really taking a lot of time to come up with something good. Cool, great, love it. Here's the problem. Every time you do that, when you are consuming, if you are in the act of consuming, you cannot simultaneously blast. That just is not how it works. You can fake the appearance of multitasking, but really all you're doing is just like any other multitasking where it's I consume a little bit and then blast it and then consume. You're really just going back and forth so seamlessly that it creates the illusion that you're doing it at the same time. But really, you're changing gears constantly. And if you are changing gears super often, there's friction there, right? It's not going to be smooth and seamless, right? You can't just quantum leap from like point A to point B. You have to go through whatever, right? And again, if you want to really map it onto the OP animals, if you have, blast here and consume here and blast here, in order to get from one to the other, you can't quantum leap it. You got to go consume play then blast, or consume sleep then blast, right? But the amount of time it takes to download something is eclipsed by the rate at which new information comes out. So I'm going to use a really, really dumb example that is not super offensive, but it illustrates the point. So if you were born in the 80s, there is a 100% chance that you used the word gay as a pejorative. If you didn't say at some point in your childhood that something was gay as a synonym for shitty, you are lying. You are lying to me right now, and we are friends, and friends don't lie to each other, right? That was just in the zeitgeist. Maybe I would believe that you never said the R word because you had, a friend or family member who was mentally disabled. And even then, like, we knew that the R word was like really, really harsh, and we used it for an intense effect. We never used that word casually, but like, we all used gay very, very liberally to be like, ugh, that test was so gay. Like, welcome to fucking 1994. That's what everybody was doing in 1994, right? So at some point, we all collectively, or piece by piece, right, whatever, updated our vocabulary to be like, you know what? So this person says that maybe I shouldn't use gay as a synonym for shitty. Huh. You know what? I'm just going to pause on using the word gay that way, or even calling things shitty. I'm going to take just a breather on calling things shitty. I'm going to re-download this new information. I'm going to figure out why I'm not supposed to say gay. Just take the time to do it. Replace gay with shitty, because that's what I want to say anyway. Okay, great. And then you move on. And then it is fine, and you don't have to wonder again if gay is okay or not to say, right? Same with, and I heard this from a lot of boomers and like kids whose parents were boomer, right, born in the 40s and 50s. They would use the word Oriental to mean anybody of Asian descent, right? They would use it to mean Chinese, Japanese, Thai, Korean, whatever. Well, we haven't said Oriental in a very long time, but if nobody tells you to update your worldview about how you should refer to another group of people, you have no idea what to say, right? So the first level to that is like, yeah, don't say Oriental, say Asian, right? Okay, that's fine. And I swear to God, look, as much as I would love to throw boomers under the rug all the time, there is a percentage of the time where boomers are not the worst. And one of those times is when they have a bad vocabulary, right? If they do say something like Oriental, or, calling somebody queer instead of gay, right? Like, yeah, my son's a queer. Like, no, you can't say that anymore. That's not what we say, guys, right? But here's the thing. If nobody updates them, if nobody tells them, hey, listen, we don't say queer anymore. We don't say Oriental. You say, my son is gay. And ideally, you should refer to the person's country of origin. Like, if you want Chinese food, say that you want Chinese food, right? Be a little more specific about it. But if you don't know, or there's ambiguity, Asian is perfectly acceptable, right? And overwhelmingly, boomers are not going to be mad at you if you're not a dick about it, right? They get mad at you if you get snotty about it and you're like, oh God, grandpa, get with the times. It's Asian. It's not Oriental, okay? Right? If you say it like that, then all that's going to make them fucking want to do is say Oriental to spite you, right? So, but that's sort of the, like illustrating the premise of consume, right? Very, very simple. And when it's something little like that, it's just a vocabulary change. It's not a big deal. Where it does become a big deal, especially in this day and age, is when you have a rapidly evolving cultural movement you're trying to stay abreast of. I mean, I remember when Me Too was happening, like late 2017, early 2018. It was a fucking hellscape to be on the internet. It was awful. And you're like, I know that I need to stay abreast of how terrible this is, but also I'm not getting any work done. Like, I'm not comfortable producing content because what is acceptable is changing on a day-to-day basis. And not only like Magical Christmas Land, I would, produce something and then have it be, rejected, right? But this is like, I can't even get started on something, if I'm not constantly like, okay, hang on, what is the preferred? Is it LGBT? Is it LGBTQ? Is it LGBTQ plus? I think we are now back to LGBT. Again, like you, there's no way to actually know. This is without even getting into the like multiple different factions and groups of people have their own preferred nomenclature, right? But also just how to depict. Here's a medium dumb example, but like how to depict women in media. Like, what is the acceptable way to do that in 2020? Especially if you are a male writer, right? If you're a male writer who wants to write a female character, good fucking luck, buddy. Because the rules, and again, it's not I think that now the big picture things have indeed settled. And I think that there are ways to write women characters that are broadly inoffensive, right? And I think that many reasonable people are now at the point where it's like, look, as long as you don't make them a literal plot device, like, feel free to have your own, feel free to write a story centered around a straight male character, but just make sure that the women in the story don't merely exist as a function of this main man's narrative, right? They got to have interests. They have to be fully fleshed out people. They have to be people that you can actually relate to, right? But certainly, I think that there is still a little bit of a tightrope to walk in consume-heavy internet circles, where it's like, even beyond the normal, you can't please everybody. The culture just changes really, really quickly, and it's very, very difficult to keep abreast of the changing political climate, which prevents people from actually getting work done. And I've seen it a lot in my circles. Part of why a lot of my cohort has been so unproductive these past couple of years is that we're like, hang on a second, I'm not going to produce anything. And again, it's not just, I use women as an example because I'm a straight male. But if you are a white writer, if you're a white woman writer, good fucking luck writing a person of color in your story. You're going to have to walk on fucking eggshells too. And my point is that if you're constantly focusing all of your energy on updating your worldview, you're not going to get anything done. And so one thing that I'm really trying to reconcile here is, how do you walk this tightrope, right? How do you take responsibility for blast and consume, right? We need all of the things in fairly equal measure. Fine. I accept responsibility for both. But like, what actually is the ratio? Because right now, it seems like even if we're like, okay, I know that it's consumer capitalism is at its finest right now. I know that the institutions are telling us to consume. Okay, I'm going to go 2 layers deeper than those. Let's see how much blast versus consume I really need. Motherfucker, I need way more consume than blast? Jesus Christ. All right. But then like the further you get, you're like, wait a minute. I have to stop. I have to stop consuming at some point. And I want to sort of close on this idea of like, it goes beyond being willing to be wrong. Because that's like a normal thing that we, as part of learning, you have to try and fail and try better and whatever, blah, blah, blah bullshit, right? We all know these things. But I think what's crucial in this day and age is to consume what you feel you need to consume. And then when you go to blast, to actually stick to your guns and saying, no, you know what? I am willing to be wrong about this right now. Don't care. I accept that my video will be outdated based on the metric of every 2 weeks there's a massive cultural shift. I remember this was back in 2010, I did a lot of YouTube videos, making covers, putting out, cover songs, content, because this was, again, it was 2010. That was sort of like the hip thing that a lot of people were discovering YouTube for and using it for. And I realized that I had to stop because I was like, I can't fucking keep up with these people who are putting in 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, whatever it is, just doing this one thing to like, oh, I hear what's the #1 song on the radio right now. Oh, it's this? Great. I'm going to spend the rest of the day, cancel all my plans. I'm going to learn the song, make the cover of it, piecemeal it together, spend 4 days in the recording studio, and then put out this really, really high quality version of this song. At which point, a new song will be out that I now have to put together quickly as well. And it just becomes this treadmill effect where like, can I please do literally anything else? Or am I locked into doing this one thing because I'm just having to consume all the time, right? And I think that there is a real danger in not updating your worldview when you know that you should, when it's like, you know what? There really is like a big picture thing that I need to slow down and like start to address instead of just, blasting out the same known information about company policy, right? I maybe need to question company policy because I've been doing this for 10 years. We haven't updated our software in 10 years. We haven't updated any of our policies or procedures since 1997. Yeah, we need to like reevaluate these things and make some big changes. That is a fantastic use of consume. My God, please consume that way. But when you get caught in this thing of like, every day there's some new fresh hell that I have to take in and process and let it affect my worldview and the nuance of you're never going to get anything done. And I finally quit watching the news and I unfollowed all the social, like my friends who shared a lot of political and cultural commentary type memes. I unfollow people who share a lot of think pieces. The only people I follow now are people who post pictures of their puppies, their kids, and their food. If you post pictures of animals, children, food, or nature, right? If you're like a nature photographer, happy to follow you. And crucially, if y'all post something that's political that I need to consume, happy to do it. Happy to do it because I know that it is clearly important enough If you're sharing it and all you ever do is fucking post about Indian food and your racquetball, squash, whatever bullshit, and you're like, hey guys, we need to talk about racism in America. I'm like, oh shit, something happened. I guess we do need to talk about racism in America, right? But if all you ever do is if you're just throwing out things that you've consumed in the hopes that other people are going to consume them too, I think you're going to run into to a lot of problems. I know that I have, and I think that it's really, really worth having a little bit of extra awareness about the role that consume plays in your life and how frequently it really is important to update your worldview, and to only do that when it really matters, when it's really important, when it's going to actively affect major behavioral changes in you, as opposed to just, you know what? I have this idea and I'm like 85% into it. But you know what? If I just read one more article, I think I could probably get that up to 90. Oh no, it's only an 88. All right, well, I said I was going to do 90, but now there's this other article out that's going to get me to 90. 89, motherfucker. Right? That's a very easy trap to fall into, especially with all the information out there. So I just encourage all of you to be cognizant. I know that I'm going to be cognizant as well. And I'm not saying don't ever consume, but I am saying to be strategic about it. And I am saying that it's because it is so much easier now to consume than to blast. That is where we need to focus our energy to bring it back to the middle in a way that we didn't 50 years ago when it was so much easier to blast than to consume. We had to make more of an effort to consume. All right, that's all I got for today. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, especially if you are savior consume, lead consume, double activated consume. Like, I really do want to hear your thoughts on how consume affects you, because obviously I'm speaking from a blasty place as somebody who wants to blast, but I'm curious about you guys who maybe necessarily don't want to blast as much, and how you guys are feeling the fatigue and the degree to which you're feeling it when it comes to having to stay abreast of the new and latest idea, data, fad, game, cultural phenomenon. All right, that's all I got for today. Have a good one. Bye.